Vanessa Lucchesi. Buon pomeriggio, Vanessa. How are you?
Well, I'm good. How are you?
You can say buon pomeriggio, that's okay.
Buon pomeriggio. That's
Okay.
the extent my Italian will be today.
For today, tell us about, we'll talk about your Adelaide City Football Club stuff and then a bit about the Italianness. So what are you doing with Adelaide City?
So currently at Adelaide City, I kind of got two roles there. So I'm the club historian, but I'm also social media manager. So kind of juggling a lot of things at once, but it's okay. It's fun. It keeps you on your toes. So I more or less kind of live there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm either going to games, well, more or less the girls and the men's game, watching them, doing social media stuff. The history is a bit more behind the scenes. There's a segment on the Adelaide City social media pages called Sunday Storia, and they try to be every fortnight, but because I've been a bit busy, I haven't been able to get them out, pump them out a lot this year. And they're just kind of the segment on a specific player from the past, or maybe a game or an event, and sometimes I expand it to be a bit more broad about football, soccer in the past. And then we also do just like a memory lane photo every couple of weeks as well, because there's a lot of stuff out there that I think people don't know about, which I also didn't know about. The more I'm getting my name out there, I think the more I'm finding new things, because people are saying, oh, hey, I'll send them to Vanessa. And, I've got a little bit of a museum at home and I have no room, but, it's fine.
Cool. So now explain to me, what does a historian do at the football club? Oof, how can you be a historian?
How can you be a historian? It's interesting. I guess it depends on the kind of historian you are. There are different types. For me, my history at the moment is encompassing doing the little segments on social media,
mm-hmm.
And pumping them out to people, because they're quite digestible, because it's not as long as a thesis, and they're written a bit more simply, so people can enjoy them. They're more humanistic in element, as opposed to a thesis, which can be a bit dry and repetitive and stuff. But I'm thinking of writing a book on the club, because I have the time and I've got the sources. And at the moment, I'm thinking of also conducting interviews with former players, coaches as well, and just recording them on camera and then posting them maybe to a YouTube page or something. I could even post them to, I think Adelaide City has a YouTube page, but we haven't used them a lot. So I could even start posting them there.
Yes, very, very important. So first of all, you're talking about creating actually some documents that could be used, again, for the analysis, for writing the history. And then you said looking at different sources. You've got the sources, which is what? Documents and interviews. I just the other day was having coffee with a gentleman called David Solari. You know him, but he's a cyclist, an Olympic cyclist for Italy. And
he was friends with my nonno.
Friends of your nonno, okay. Yeah. Or maybe you're talking about Nino Solari.
Yes,
Nino. And David was saying, he's got all his memories from his father, but it would have been beautiful also to have some of it recorded, because memories can fade, can go. So you're going to write the book. How do you do that? You said you're going to interview people.
Yes,
and we'll go back in a minute. We'll say, I think it's enormously very open-minded and clever of the club to take this on. It's very, very important.
Yes, well, I wrote my thesis in 2018, and I contacted the club the same year asking, I don't know, just for a bit of help, but they never got back in contact with me, which is fine, because I ended up finding a lot of things. But then the year after, the media manager at the time, Matthew Doolan, contacted me. He said, hey, would you like to work at the club doing some history? And I was like, yeah, of course, that would be so good. And then from there, I feel like I've been at the club like 100 years, which is, you just kind of slot in there and everyone's really welcoming, which is great. And they've, the stuff that we do it's growing, and I think that's good for the club. What they want to do a national second division. So if that happens and we go in, it would be good to keep expanding what we do. But yeah, it's with the book, it's one of those things where it's mainly relying on people's testimonies and people's stories, but then you also have to have the documents to back it up. Otherwise, not that But like you were saying, memory fades, dates get mixed up, and that's just natural. That's a natural part of life. But you've got to have something solid to back it up, which there is a lot of, which is really good.
Well, actually, I just reading part of your thesis today. There was a table of the first ethnic clubs, use that word, that were traded. I didn't know there was one called Roma. Yeah.
Yes, because they amalgamated with Juventus, so Adelaide City, I think in the 50s, because at that time you couldn't have two clubs of the same nationality in one division. So they had to merge.
Ah, really? I think the dates were 56 to 58.
Yes, yes, it was 58. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And I had never heard of this. In my exposure to the sector. See, we were talking a little bit about history, what a historian does, a little bit to set up a history of a book. Think about Adelaide City, Juventus, whatever you want to call it. What does a club like that mean or represent in a community?
Interesting. It also it depends. Well, they're kind of. I found this quote when I was doing my thesis, and they were talking about soccer football clubs in Italy, and they said they're nodes around which people gather, and that's basically true. I think it was more so important when the migrants first started coming because they didn't have, apart from church, they didn't really have anywhere to meet. It's not like when we go down to Norwood now and see a million cafes. It was quite rare. So church was the only place, and then so that was the 50s, and then it wasn't up until the 70s that really regional Italian clubs started forming. So you have a 20-year period of people needing to find somewhere, find expression to be themselves and to meet other Italians and to meet other people to communicate with, but to also maybe branch out and meet people of new ethnicities, which you would at a game of, say, Juventus versus Polonia, you'd meet lots of Polish migrants. So it was great. It was great to read about that, a lot of what we call bridging social capital, which is when you meet people of different ethnicities or someone who's different to yourself, and also bonding social capital, which is basically meeting with people of your same ethnicity or your same race.
Yes, people that you're closer to and you have closer bonds and lines of connection.
Yeah.
I need to raise my own volume. Yes, and so you're ongoing. When's the expected time for this book?
Oh, well.
And by the way, I'm very impressed that you actually think about writing a book. Finished my thesis and I've thrown it away, hated it.
Oh, well, no, that was the same as mine. After I finished my thesis, I was like, I'm not looking at this for at least 2 years. The trauma it gave me.
Yeah.
But I'm happy now. So I'm like, yeah, I think maybe I'll get into it. Well, I don't know really, because the hard part is with writing a book or writing a thesis is that you've got to stop at some point. Like I was collecting so much information and my supervisor was like, okay, now you need to stop and you physically need to start writing, but then something else might come out and you're like, oh, I could have added that. So, and I know another soccer historian, Dennis Harlow, he wrote a book about the history of soccer in South Australia. And I think he only intended to take a year or 2 years. It took him like 10, 20 years to write. So like that could very well be me.
Yeah, no, as I said, in the meantime, it's very, very important that this is being recorded, that it's being done, and that the club is open-minded enough to have someone like that, and you organising their social medias, forms of communication as well. Okay. And I also discovered, recently, that you are a broadcaster yourself. You were doing programs on this radio.
Yes, I was with Alex de Blasio. We had a youth show from 6 till 7 on a Tuesday, but then I had to give it up because I had soccer training. Yeah. So, yeah.
So actually I was going to ask about that. You play as well? Do you play with Adelaide City?
I don't. I'm a bit of a traditore. I don't play at Adelaide City. I play at Campbelltown, one of our rivals. So just forget about that.
No, how does that work?
How does that work?
With the rivalries and the open-mindedness.
Yeah.
They might be listening to you now.
Yeah, I know. I gotta choose my words carefully. It's interesting when I go to Campbelltown City games, especially when they're at home at Campbelltown, because I'm working and I have my Adelaide City stuff on, and then people recognise me. I'm like, oh, okay, don't worry, you'll see me at training on Tuesday or Thursday. But yeah, who knows what will happen next year. There's lots of different clubs, and I want to try and start a women's division team at Adelaide City, because they currently don't have one. It just goes under 17s, then reserves, and then WMPL. So it's good to have like a division team in the middle. So if girls don't want to do anything serious after under 17s, they can go maybe do something a bit more fun, but also still intense, but a bit more fun.
Yeah. Well, and how is women's football developing in Adelaide, South Australia?
It's really good. Recently, this is more the W League, so above WMPL Adelaide City, but Adelaide United's women did very well last year. And historically, they haven't done as well, because what we've been doing is we've been breeding our local talent and developing our local talent. So we don't have to sign many people. I think we only had 3 international players last year. And so we've got all these young people coming through, all these local players coming through. And last year they almost made finals. I think it was a couple points off. It was really unlucky. But that just goes to show the development of women's soccer in the state, which is doing really well. And that was under Ivan Karlovic and Adrian Stenter. And I think Joe Mullen, who used to play for Adelaide City, was also helping the Adelaide United women's team, which is, a little bit of a connection there with Adelaide City.
Good. Okay. Well, it's good to see there's the long-term thinking and the investment in the talent and the local Il Vivaio, and that's paying. But it's good to see that there's lots of girls and young women interested in joining. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, time is moving on. As I said, we will have now, hopefully, several maybe regular conversations with Vanessa to go through the thesis and what she's done and what she can tell us about the history and beyond. Now, earlier I asked Matthew if he wanted to play a song, and he said, well, there was one song that I learned when I was in year 11 or 12 that it was fascinating for him. It was Paese from Nicola Di Bari. And now, do you have a song or a singer or someone that you want to?
Oof. I'm going to pick this one. When I went to Italy, when I try to go to Italy pre-COVID, every 2 years I go for summer, just for about a month to go with my zio. And
your zio, where does the Lucchesi family come from?
So my hold on one second. There we go. So my zio, my mum's side is all from Abruzzo. My dad's dad is from Toscana, and my dad's mum is from Veneto. But my zio lives in Milano. He works during the week, and then on the weekend he goes to Lugano in Switzerland to be with his partner and his son.
Okay, a very popular girl. So, okay, let's pinpoint a bit more. So where in Veneto, where in Toscana, where in Abruzzo?
So in Abruzzo, it's from Fontevignone. That's in L'Aquila. And that was my nonna. And my nonno is from San Panfilo d'Ocle, which is literally Fontevignone's right here. San Panfilo's a little bit below. So that's how they knew each other. And in Toscana, my dad's side is from Capannori, which is just outside Lucca. Mm-hmm. And in Veneto, my nonna was from Bigolino, which is near Treviso.
Okay, so and
so it's a bit of a mix.
Yeah. So do you have a bit of a dialect or an inflection, a regional inflection when you speak Italian?
I feel like I sound a little bit Venetian.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like, because they've got an interesting dialect. But when I was growing up, I grew up with my nonna's Abruzzese. My dad's, Toscana is more or less the proper Italian, but Capannori has a few words. But then my nonna also knew a bit of Napolitan, and it's a bit of a mix of everything, to be honest. But yeah, I think I sound a bit Venetian.
We'll bring that up one day. Allora, so what song shall we look for or singer?
All right. It's called Ma quale idea by Pino D'Angio.
Ecco, Pino D'Angio, Ma quale idea. Ottimo. E perché?
My zio showed me when I was in Italy. When was I there last? 2019. And it's just a really hip, it's an older song. I think it's from the 70s or 80s or so. And just reminds me of him when he'd be younger, going out clubbing, and maybe a bit more Adelaide, the local scene, the Italian music that the young'uns were listening to. But it's a bit of a bop. It's very good to listen to.
Ok, Pino D'Angio, ma quale idea?
Oh, such a good song.
Ok, velocemente suoniamo un po' per dire ciao, grazie a Vanessa e ci sentiamo fra poco. Ok, ciao.
Sì, ciao, ci sentiamo.